Thank you. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call. Candy, please.
Certainly. Jack McGuffey,
Here.
Nick Morano,
Here.
Joel Dunn,
Here.
Denny Dotson.
Here.
You have a quorum. And if I might, as a housekeeping note, ask for the benefit of the person taking minutes, when you speak, if you could first say your name and who you're with. Thank you.
I keep forgetting that button. Not used to that. Okay. So for possible action, election of the officers, we don't have the governor's selection at this time, but we do have a quorum, so we would like to move forward and get officers in place as we have short deadlines to get the Polar Express going and the related functions of that. So I'll make a motion to appoint Denny Dawson as the chair.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right. Would somebody like to make a motion for the vice chair?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that Nick Morano sit as vice chair for the commission.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Okay, and for treasurer,
Jack, I'd like to nominate Joel Dunn as the treasurer.
okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you, Joe. Okay. So, with that said, did you want to take over the meeting now, Joel? Or, I mean, Denny, sorry.
Yep, be happy to. Okay, with that, we'll move on to number 2 on the agenda, the approval of the agenda. If I could get a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Do we have any public comment on the agenda? Just on the agenda, yes. Hearing none, I'll call for all those in favor.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, then we'll move to item 3 on the agenda, approval, excuse me, item 3 is public comment. Discussion may be limited to 3 minutes per person at the discretion of the chairman. No action may be taken on a matter raised under this portion of the agenda until the matter itself has been specifically included on an agenda as an item upon which action may be taken. Anybody from the public?
Yes, thank you, Bruce Kittis, Carson City. I've been attending the V&T meetings since 2006 and haven't missed too many. I appreciate that the legislature has chosen to change the structure, and we have a new perspective with tourism, and all that is good. I would like to help you with your perspective. I would like to ask that prior to the next meeting that you see the principal and interest paid by Carson City on the bonds, the principal and interest paid by the Visitors Bureau. The amount of money that Carson City and the Visitors Bureau has subsidized the interest. In other words, for each year, we had years there were a shortfall, and Carson had to come up out of the general fund with more money than the income. I believe that might be $500,000 or $1 million over and above the regular schedule. I think it would be of interest to know the amount of money that Virginia City, that Story County has contributed. This is all through September 30th. Kind of like a milestone, has contributed on each of their bonds. With prior to the change, there was always hope that the other counties would participate, would pay. And we sat through meeting after meeting where there were all kinds of reasons why we can't do it this year, next year. I would think it would be of interest to see how much through September 30th, Douglas, Washoe, and Lyon actually contributed. I think that will be an interesting number. We won't discuss it again, but the point is that's gone. There is no more hope for Carson City taxpayers that those three counties will contribute because they're gone. So my point is, comes to the MOU. We've listened for the last 3 years about the Story County, Virginia City MOU, and we've heard about the audit. Every meeting, there's some other reason. So I would like you to know and us to know, get the MOU straightened out. Is Story County going to pay any more, or they're not going to pay any more, or is it all Carson City's burden? That's really the point I have. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Just a point of, Nicole Bard, Story County resident, just a point of clarification. There's a new member on the board, and I don't recall that that was announced or presented in a public meeting of the commission. Did I miss that? Nick, where's Mayor Bob?
I think there are 3 new members.
Well, 3, I'm
Not
talking
two.
about, we have 2 of them that we knew about. I'm sorry, but you're
To bring you up to speed.
a new face for me. I've known these gentlemen for a while.
Mayor Crowell spoke with me last week, and he's been on the board for 8 years, and he decided to step down, and he recommended Nick to take his spot.
Okay, so that is an announcement that should go on public record rather than...
So, I mean, not to get into it during public comment, but this was a publicly noticed action of the Carson City Board of Supervisors.
Okay.
It was agendized. They voted a week ago. I'm currently the city manager here in Carson. So the Board of Supervisors appointed me to the board, to the
Okay,
commission.
I'm not arguing it.
No, I'm just
saying
giving you.
An intro to the
Sure.
people here in this commission might have, been nice, that's all.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And if I might add to that just a little bit, I meant to say thank you. Thank you to the board for believing or having the confidence in me to lead us into a new era. And I want to say thank you to the past board members, specifically Dwight Millard. Be remiss if we didn't acknowledge the years of service that he put in, the hard work and sweat. And trust me, we're going to need to be leaning on a lot of the expertise that's here in this room and the folks that are not here to make this thing go forward and be what it should be for the region. So with that, any other public comment? Okay, having none, we'll move on to item number 4, possible action, approval of the minutes of August 17th. Which I might add in our motion that when we do approve this, it should be noted that we were not here, we were not present on the board at that time, that it was done under a different board, with the exception of Jack McGuffey here. So as we do look to approve those, we should make that recognition that we were not here and can't speak to it specifically or prove it, but...
Okay. Well, I can still make it. Thank you. Well, yes, as stated, I was the only person here, so therefore I can only be the one to approve the minutes. So I'll need a motion for me to approve the minutes for August 17th, 2007. Or 2017, sorry. Okay, so you want to make a motion?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of August 17th, knowing that this board was not seated at that time, and cannot verify the accuracy.
Okay. I'll second. Where's you want to say? No. I'll second. All in favor? Aye.
All in favor? Aye. We got it, okay. All right. Let's move on to item number 5, possible action, appointment of authorized signers for accounts payable. Mr. Treasurer, do you want to take that one?
Absolutely. It certainly, one of the reasons that we had this meeting so quickly in the process of the new commission was to make sure that we continue forward and not, certainly not hamper the start of the Polar Express. And in talking with current staff, that's certainly a call for needing some signees on the account. And with the fact that the only authorized signer that's still involved left on, I think, September 30th, and we no longer have an authorized signer on the account. The motion tonight, I would like to see between Story County and Carson City at least 2 in each one of the counties. So with that, I would make a motion that we have Chris Kipp from the Carson City Visitors Bureau and a designee from the city of Carson City on the Carson City side.
Yeah, and I think it would be appropriate to have a couple from Virginia City as well. So I'd like to have Katie DeMuth with my office, and probably myself as a chair would be 2 from Virginia City.
And Nick, do you have an appointee?
So, yeah, I'd like to nominate the Deputy City Manager, Nancy Paulson, for the City of Carson City.
Any public comment? Okay, seeing none, I make a motion to approve the 4 designated signees for the account for the commission.
Second.
Would there be any public comment? Yes, sir.
How many signatures are required?
2.
Yeah, there'll be 2 signatures required on all checks.
Okay, with that, no board comment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion pass. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 6 for possible action, the approval of the treasurer's report and balance sheet. Mr. Robinson.
Thank you. Okay, looking at the enterprise fund for the month of August, we had ticket sales in the amount of $67,071 and total income of $68,416. We had expenses in the amount of $117,815. So that left us with an operating loss of $49,398 for the month. And then year-to-date, we had $223,692 in gross income and expenses through the calendar year of $243,276, leaving a net loss after commission funding and grants of a loss of $170,448. And then moving on to the balance sheet, at August 31st, we had $127,348 in the bank, and we had prepaid tickets in the amount of $295,836. On the AR accounts receivable, we had a total at August 31st of $10,750. And in accounts payable, at August 31st, we had $49,136. Moving on to the general fund, at August 31st, we had $183,438, of which $171,456 is held specifically and earmarked for the Engine 18 repair, which leaves $11,982 available. At August 31st, or in the month of August, we had total revenues of $11,540, and we had expenses totaling $14,283, which results in a net loss of $2,743 on the general fund. And I'm going to throw in under this agenda item number our checklists, which we typically do for approval as well. On the enterprise fund, we had a total expenditures since our last meeting of $192,991. And on the commission level, we had checks written in the amount of $10,279. And that's the end of my report.
Do we have any questions from the board?
So you said there's 11K still available for the repair of 18?
No, there's 171,456.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, there's 171,456 of the 183,438
Okay.
earmarked that can be spent toward 18. Whether we use it or not, I don't know.
No.
That hasn't been a formalized as a hold, but that's what Story County requested, so we're trying to honor that.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the board? Do you have any questions from the public?
I thought at the last meeting or the meeting before that there was going to at least be a note down at the bottom with the 171,000 that's held. I don't see a note anywhere. It should be noted somewhere, whether it's approved or not. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Hearing none, I will ask for a motion to approve the financials that are submitted.
I'll make a motion to approve the financials as submitted.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, now on to some fun stuff. Item number 7, possible action, marketing report. Ms. Candy Duncan.
Candy Duncan, V&T Railway Commission Marketing Manager. So I have some really fun things to tell you. The first one is that tomorrow is the last Saturday this year, so we're ready to get into our very last weekend of our steam season. And we are just about sold out for tomorrow's steam train. We have 98 guests traveling with us tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock on the Toast of the Canyon train, the last one. And then Sunday we're probably going to sell out on Sunday too, it being the last day, and then we're finished for this season. We partnered with Virginia City on 4 cooperative marketing campaigns this summer: the Taste of the Comstock, Hot August Nights, Street Vibrations, and the Outhouse Races. For the Taste of the Comstock on June 10th, it resulted in the sales of 70 tickets that included the round-trip ride on the V&T and taste tickets. This is the first time that we have done anything like this. We actually had 3 passenger cars that day for a capacity of 210, and we sold 207 seats for that day. For Hot August Nights, it resulted in sold-out trains for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of that weekend. For Street Vibrations, resulted in sold-out trains for Saturday and Sunday of that weekend. And the Outhouse Races resulted in sold-out trains for Saturday, and 127 of 140 available seats sold out for Sunday of that weekend. This year we had 48 steam round-trip runs, and 24 of them ran at capacity. On May 27th, June 3rd, 10th, 11th, 17th, and 18th, we were sold out with 3 cars. But then we had to be limited due to the issue of the 18 not being repaired and the 29 better able to only handle 2 passenger cars. We were cut back to 140 seats, and 18 of those runs were at capacity. We have applied for 2 tourism grants to continue the momentum with off-season advertising, which we've not been able to do in the past. If we receive these grants, we'll send out email blasts reminding passengers to buy gift certificates during the holiday season for next year, and to purchase gift items with their souvenir wanted poster photos. And for those of you that are not aware, when you come and ride the train during the summer season on weekends, we take a free photo, put it on a wanted poster, and then when you get home, you can download it for free, but you can also make it into a t-shirt or a coffee mug or whatever you want. So we want to remind people to order those items, and we do get a commission from anything that anybody orders off of that site. And then we're also going to do some train trivia contests with family packs as the prize. And our current email list now contains over 25,000 names of past riders, both for regular season and for Polar Express. We continue to promote the Polar Express on social media platforms, and currently we've sold approximately half of the tickets that we have available to sell. Our VIP tickets are almost gone, with only 173 of the 2,144 tickets that were available left to sell. And for coach, we had 14,500 tickets to sell, and we have 8,152 remaining. And lastly, we recently did an email blast for Thomas the Train in Virginia City, and we plan to do more blasts plus ticket giveaway contests to continue to promote the Polar Express until it's sold out. It begins the 18th of November. That's my report. Any questions?
We started sales on the Polar Express early.
June this year. That's
Is that pretty
correct.
successful, or?
Actually, it has been, and it's made for a little less chaotic phone service as well, because in the past, when we waited until mid-August, there was a huge panic, and this has been, it was just a panic the first day, and after that, it's been a lot calmer.
All right.
Yes.
Candy, I have a question for you. You guys do a budget for each specific special train or special event, like a co-op or a special wine train?
We did a budget for the co-ops, that's correct.
And so how do we meet on just specifically those trains? How do we meet to expectation or budget on those?
Well, that's a very good question. I don't have the answer for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure, Bob. Yeah, go ahead.
Your microphone.
Yeah, I would say that it's important probably to ask accounting versus the marketing folks about sales and also budgets.
Feel free to answer the question then.
Yeah, absolutely. Specifically, the Canyon Run costs $575 to run the engine down there, so it's always profitable.
Yeah, we did see a notable increase on those events, and it seemed like we kind of tapped into something that, as we look to next year, I look forward to working with your team on that. I think it's something that you guys did well with, and I see Brianna back there nodding her head. We can do some good things. I'm looking forward to working it.
Great.
Is there any other comments from the board?
Looking at the 8,152 remaining tickets, is it safe to assume most of those are the latest, the 8:30 run?
Well, obviously, all the days right around Christmas are pretty much sold out. So these are your 8 o'clock Sunday nights and some 8 o'clock Thursdays. But it looks to me, as from the last time I looked, all the Saturdays in December, except maybe for the first one, are all sold out. So it's all the other days in there.
And in a later agenda item, when we talk about future meetings, I'll be addressing the possibility of maybe having another follow-up meeting pretty quickly to appoint some committees. And one of those would be a marketing committee so that we can get all of our teams together with the effort that you guys are putting out now. So that's it for me.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? No? Do we have any questions from the public on this item? Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve Candy's marketing report.
I make a motion to approve the marketing report.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, and motion carries. Agenda item number 8 for possible action, a Polar Express update. And Ms. Candy, maybe I can ask you to kind of lead that for us and get this discussion started.
Sure, I would be happy to. I think that, as I just reported to you, we've still got a ways to go on ticket sales. And as far as the event itself, I can let you know that we do have contracts in place right now with Rail Events, and that's the franchise holder Rail Events holds the Polar Express franchise. We have a signed contract with them for this year. We'll have to do a new one going forward, but we're all set for this year. We also have our insurance, and we gave that to them, so they have an insurance certificate, so we're good there. Craig Marshall is our photographer, and we have a contract with him, so he will be at the depot taking Santa pictures, and Bob can tell you the details on what the percentage is, but we get a percentage of that as well as Polar Express gets a percentage of it. We have a signed application for a temporary lighted sign permit for Highway 50 at Flint Road. I just got that back today from the sheriff and the highway patrol. And what we do is we have a sign out there that says it is meant to control traffic. We can't put Polar Express on that sign because that's advertising, but what we do is put V&T Depot turn left or V&T Depot turn right, so it warns people of traffic coming in and out of that intersection on Flint Road. Granite Construction supplies us with that sign, and I have talked with them, and they're all set to bring it out for us, and in turn we give them tickets on our dress rehearsal run at 5 o'clock on the opening night for their employees, and that's how we compensate them for that. They'll also give us 3 light standards that we have to use to light the parking lot out at Eastgate, because all of our runs for Polar are at night, and it gets very dark out there, and so you have to have those big bright lights, and they bring those out for us and maintain them for us over the season. I think last year one of the lights burnt out, and we did have to replace that, but they're very responsive when you call them.
Who is that?
Granite Construction. Okay. The depot itself will be staffed and decorated by Bob's team. He will, after this weekend, he will get together with his people and put away all the summer stuff and make sure it's all decorated and ready for Christmas on the inside, but we will need someone to do the outside. In the past, Millard had come out with his team and strung the lights up on the big buildings and everything and got it all lit, so that's something we'll need someone to help us do this year. And the ramp, and also decorate the ramp. There is a need to make sure when we put our subcommittee together that we are addressing snow removal. Fortunately, we've only had maybe 1 or 2 times in the whole time we've been doing Polar where we've had to actually remove snow from the parking lot. We've been very lucky, but that could end this year, so we just need to make sure we've got snow removal ready. We take care of icing and shoveling the sidewalks and ramps with the staff that Bob hires, so we can take care of that, but it's just the main parking lot that we're going to need to make sure we've got snow removal ready to go. We'll also need someone to assist us with parking. I know that Bob will hire someone to take care of parking control, but in the past we've had a golf cart with a light on it so that we could drive down and assist people and help people who sometimes between runs they park way down at the bottom of the hill, not understanding there's a whole bunch of spots up in front because that train's already gone, so we have to have someone coordinate parking. We have a sound system in the depot, but it has not been used since last Polar Express, so it's going to need at least a little bit of work to make sure that it works for announcements, letting people know when it's time to line up for trains, when the train is coming in, the necessary housekeeping things that you have to let people know for those trains. I will be at the depot every night from about 3:30 until the end of until 10 sometimes, doing customer service, and by that I let people know, I make the announcements on when people are supposed to line up and tell them what they're about to experience and deal with happy and sad customers and just make sure that we have the flow going between all the trains. So we've got that taken care of. And of course, Tom has got a great staff and we'll have them all ready to go on the train, so you don't have to worry about the train. He decorates it. He's got a great staff. He's got that under control. His engineer is awesome. He has the timing down perfectly for the hour-long ride and getting to the North Pole on time and getting back, because we only have a half an hour turnaround in between trains, so it's very important that we keep everything on a good schedule. And he's got a brand new engine this year and it works really good, and so it's going to be great. The North Pole, that's our big question mark, because that's always been taken care of in the past by Millard, really, by his construction company. And we will need to contact Dwight and go to the warehouse and get the flats that are the village. They need to be put up, and not only do they need to be constructed, but they need to be tied down really well, because it's blown down. I don't know how many times the North Pole's blown down. The rain puts that, last year we had a lot of trouble because we had so much rain. So it lost power, and it was dark, and Joy was telling me today she had to go hook her truck up to the generator and jump it to get the lights to come on just as the train came around the corner. So there's a lot of challenges out at the North Pole due to the elements to keep it standing, keep it decorated, and keep it lit. And so those are issues that we're going to need to be sure we cover and make sure. I think it's important to have someone who has electrical and maintenance knowledge that we can call right away. So as soon as I get a report, I'm the one, the director or Tom will call me and say, okay, there's no lights at the North Pole, and I've got to know who I can call to get out there to make sure the lights get turned on by the time the train gets there. So there's that kind of coordination that we're going to need to be sure we cover.
May I ask, where is the North Pole assembled? At the
No, it's
East Gate?
3
or-
miles to the east of the
Oh,
depot.
okay,
It's
okay.
out, what's the name of, there's a gravel pit
Oh,
out
okay.
there. And that's the other thing, we need to make sure that we have permission to use it again, too. Each year, we give them free tickets as well, and Ken and I coordinate in giving away tickets on that opening night to those people like that we owe money to, or owe favors to. We also, Joy Evans in the past, and I spoke to her today, she has got all the volunteer elves that she needs. She goes to schools and a choir and the cadets to get kids out there to dress up like elves, to be elves when the train arrives. So she has that, but she also needs a trailer to keep them warm in between train times, and so there's that issue. In the past, she's ordered one, we've rented one from
A rental
company, and I don't know if there's a different way we could do that, but we do need some place for people to be warm. The city has asked us about power looms and other equipment for the North Pole. In the past, we've used that, ordered that from the city, and so we need to coordinate with them, with Parks and Rec, to make sure we have all that equipment. And also, Joy provides food to the volunteers out there, because we don't pay them to be out there, but we do provide them with snacks and food. And then in the summertime, we give their families a complimentary trip on the train. So that's how we compensate them.
And we donate to their groups.
And we donate to their groups.
1,000 each.
To their groups as well, 1,000 each, okay. We have a new director this year, Carla Wilson, has taken on the task of putting together the cast and the direction for the Polar Express. And this past summer, I went to Durango, Colorado. They offered a free, they called it a Polar Express camp, and I went to that and learned the new requirements they have, because in order to remain a franchise in good standing with rail events, there are certain criteria that you have to do for your event, and they've changed some of that. So I learned about that this summer and brought home all of that information to Carla, and she has that well in hand. So I'm really not concerned about what's going to happen on the train or what's going to happen at Eastgate Depot. Right now, I think the big unknown is the North Pole. And as soon as we get that settled, we'll be fine. We're ready to go. But just so you know, this is our 9th year, and Rail Events ranks us number 7 of all their 55 Polar Expresses that they have. So we know what we're doing. We do a pretty good job.
That's great, that's great. Before we ask a couple other questions of the board, Bob, do we have a standalone event budget for Polar Express?
Yes.
And I guess specifically, how much did we pay or do we budget for the construction of the North Pole and the tear down at the end of the year?
Well, I'd have to look that up specifically,
Okay.
but you may or may not know, there are a lot of materials required every year, so it's a combination typically of materials and labor, both.
Sure. And I think with the way that, obviously this is very important that we pull this off perfectly through this transition here. It's one of the things that, was a big flag for us. I know Joel and I both jumped on it. Unfortunately, the way we worded our agenda, because of the short notice and whatnot, we're not able to really assign committee members today formally. And we'll get to, I think, that here later in the meeting today about for next meetings. I think we're going to try and do something quick, if it's just by phone, to get some folks on that committee, and so that we can go to work, because it is critical. Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Okay, hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve the Polar Express update.
I'll make a motion to approve the Polar Express update.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, agenda item number 9 for possible action. Virginia and Truckee Railroad Company report, including repairs to engine 18. Mr. Tom Gray.
Hello, congratulations, new board. Hello, my name's Tom Gray. I'm with the Virginia and Truckee Railroad. This is our 42nd year of operations, by the way. On engine 18, we haven't done too much. This summer we've put in most of the stay bolts in the back head, and we've finished the front tube sheet hot riveting. We installed the new dry pipe. We put the patch bolts on the new dry pipe and the throttle, and we put the pressure test plug in it. We have a contractor helping me with that. He's not available that much, and of course he does Polar Express coming up. So I really feel after the first year we can get back on and assemble the engine. We had the federal inspection interior of the boiler about 2 weeks ago. New inspector, and the old inspector was with them. We had 2 small issues in there to take care of, but basically we're ready to reassemble the boiler tubes and flues. And we put a lot of stay bolts in the throat sheet, and that's about where we're at. Just running trains right now.
You feel it's pretty much on course to be running next year?
Yeah, we expect to.
Thank you.
No guarantees, but we expect to.
Yeah.
We like to run it.
Tom, is there anything that you need to finish that?
Don't have me pull off it again. That'd be helpful. But we're whittling away as we go.
Any other comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve Tom Gray's update on engine 18.
I'll make a motion to approve the engine update from Virginia and Truckee Railroad Company concerning the repairs of engine 18.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Hearing a motion and a second, I'll ask for all those in favor.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to agenda item number 10 for possible action, engineering report from Mr. Candor.
Thanks, Denny. A couple things. I'll try not to be too long-winded. Engineers report. By the way, Gabe Williman, our track maintenance contractor, which I think most of you guys may or may not know, is in the audience today. And Gabe will be finishing up his inspections for the regular season here, obviously, this week. And then he'll be done with that, with inspection work. He is going to be doing inspections to support the Polar Express, which is a federal requirement also. He does have some regular maintenance that he has yet to do here yet this year. We're waiting for cooler weather. I think we finally have that. But we're pretty much done with the inspections, with the exception of Polar Express. Just received a letter from Candy and Bob. NDOT inspects our Highway 50 bridge every other year. We, however, are required by federal law to inspect that bridge once a year. And we also had to, we finally got caught on the fact that we did not have a bridge maintenance and procedure manual prepared, which I was fully aware of when that act was enacted in 2010. We've been doing yearly inspections on that bridge to comply with the act, but we did not do the maintenance manual. Problem is that we have one bridge. UP's got 6,000 bridges. It's basically the same document. So we had to go through previously to set that document up, and it was quite a little bit of a pain, but it's in place right now at this point. NDOT's picked up a couple little items which were not major. There's one they're calling a significant little spalling on concrete. I would tend to differ with that, but we'll take a look at that. The bridge is in pretty good shape. There's some painting that needs to be done on the bridge. The silver paint, when you see the silver paint peeling off, recognize that's the overcoat. There's actually an undercoat of primer, if you will, and we completely refinished that bridge when it was put up in 2009 using an undercoat, rubberized basically, and the material, the paint actually essentially melds with the lead-based paint because stripping that lead-based paint off, we had to do it in a couple locations, but it's a big environmental issue. We had some specific repairs when we put that up, but as far as ever getting to the point of sandblasting that bridge, we don't want to go there because you'd have to build a tent over the highway to get that lead paint off. But the advantage is the primer is, even though there's some surface deterioration in that paint, it's in pretty good shape. With that being said, Doug Fong with Carson City is, I believe, scheduled to go up and replace some of the lights under the interlocal agreement we have on the bridge. And Doug's recommendation, which I concur with, he says you don't want to let those lights, both on the bridge and also there's 2 street lights on either side of the bridge. You particularly don't like to let those burn out because apparently when those lights burn out, not only does the bulb burn out, but the ballast goes too. So basically the routine is this will be, I think, 3 years, he goes and replaces all the lights. So it's the same program the city uses for their lights to protect their facilities. So he'll be proceeding with that. Pretty cost effective. He did have to get some traffic control because he's going to have to get up with a man lift on the lights are on the bridge, but the traffic control came in, I think it was like $750 for the temporary traffic control plan. And then the last time he did the maintenance up there, I think the commission got a bill for, and I hate to say this, Nick, but it was pretty cheap. It was like $1,200, and so we'll take it for $1,200. I'm sure if we got a contract, it'd be much more expensive. Bridge lighting. Update on our FEMA projects. As most of the board may be aware, we were actually approved under the first disaster, 4303, the one that occurred in the 1st of January, for 4 separate projects. Of those 4, 2 of them have been completed. One was emergency repairs. The second was the embankment slip-out failure repairs we had at Horseshoe Curve up in American Flats. That's been completed. The third one that's pending is tunnel number 2, and unfortunately FEMA only authorized some specific repair work. One of the main reasons we want to go in there is that when we inspected the damage after the flood, we were concerned with the amount of water that was pouring through the roof, the steel lining of that material, a bridge, and we want to get up there and basically do some sampling, essentially do it with a hammer, and inspection of that over that ceiling, if you will. That work probably is going to take place in November. The coordination, and Gary Luce, who has been our longtime geotechnical engineer on the project, has been coordinating that work. RMAC Construction was awarded the work, and the coordination has to be between RMAC, and then we have to get with Tom, because he's going to haul a flat car up there. We can put a man lift on there to get up to inspect that ceiling. So that's probably going to happen next month, I think. And I know Gary's going to be coordinating further with Tom on that. Deferral of regular maintenance items. I sort of took the bull by the horns, and there was 2 things that I've done to recognizing our financial situation and more expenses coming up. Every year we do a facility inspection of the entire railroad. Well, this year we've seen quite a bit of the railroad because of the storm damage. But that yearly inspection consists of the mandatory US 50 bridge inspection. We also do an inspection of tunnel number 2, which was also looked at after the storm. We also look at all our culverts, our ditch and slope conditions. And the culverts and ditch and slope conditions right now we know pretty well. They're pretty lousy because of the storm. We also, during that annual inspection, take a little inventory of the crossings and our signs, and the whole point of this inspection process is to develop a priority list of what needs to be taken care of. For example, we look at the culverts, and of the 100 and some culverts that we have on the project, then we'll develop a list, and Gabe will go out and try to get the worst of them, the ones that need attention. and that's always done in the fall. I think he's got quite a bit of those done, but all of that suspension, I went ahead and suspended all that work because we've been on the track so much, with the exception of completing the bridge inspection, which is required as a Federal Railroad Administration item. That probably overall is going to save the commission about $3,000 or $4,000 in that inspection work. Gabe's still going to have some culverts to clean, but I think he knows which ones to look for. He's been looking at those since January. The other item that we always do on a regular basis, we have a weed abatement program where we, Gabe has got an attachment mounted to his high rail truck where we put out weed abatement material, pre-emergent, and that's pretty much just to spray down the track structure. It doesn't really cover the entire road bed, principally to keep the cheatgrass under control. Well, that stuff's not cheap. The original contract when we first started doing that was, I think, about $9,000, of which about $5,000 was material. Well, the material cost has gone up to about $7,500, so that's pushed that price to about $11,000. Gabe actually already purchased the material, but I talked to Gabe and to Bob this week, and I said, because of the other shortfall of funding, I'm, again, good, bad, or indifferent, made the decision, we're going to defer that work until next year. Gabe has made arrangements with Crop Production Services in Reno to return the material. I think Bob's actually cut him a check for that material, but Gabe is going to reimburse Bob for the price of the material. So between the $7,500 in material and $3,500 to $4,000 in labor costs, that basically is saving the commission this year, hopefully only this year, on about $11,000 item. So those are two deferred maintenance items. And the big deferred maintenance item, of course, is the ditch work, which our project number 4 on FEMA, which I didn't talk too much about. That's the project that we actually went out for formal bid on. And we had a rather extensive to-do list. It was not just ditch cleaning work. There was also ditch cleaning, and there was also some surface and lining, and also ballast placement and dressing to clean up a lot of areas. We figured that any place we clean ditches, we're going to foul the ballast, and we're going to need to put ballast down. And again, the idea, that was a comprehensive list of ditches that were full of debris with a bit of debris or completely engulfed, if you will, with eroded materials, all the way from Eureka, which is our siting, of course, down in the Carson River Canyon, or above the Carson River Canyon, on up to Gold Hill. As I know Jack's very well aware of this, but for the other board members, we went out through a formal bid process and Mike helped me with that. We complied with both NRS and FEMA federal procurement requirements. Again, knowing that there was going to be federal reimbursement for that project, their trigger for Davis-Bacon wages, the federal prevailing wages, is $100,000 versus state of Nevada, which is $250,000. So that project was bid as a Davis-Bacon project. There were 3 bidders received. Railworks was the low bidder. That was back in July, I believe. They were conditionally awarded the project depending on the availability of funding, which that did not come forward. It was still a pending award. However, about a month ago, maybe it was 3 weeks, I received notification from FEMA indicating that all projects that had not been approved by FEMA through the local field office prior to August 27th, the funding for that was suspended. They figured that funding is going to be reinstated, but they wanted to basically be able to shift some of that pre-approved funding to the disasters back in Texas and Florida. With that receipt, I went ahead and we told the contractor that the project's been canceled at this point, which it would have been 120 days anyway. I'm getting into winter. That doesn't mean that can't be rebid to a lesser contract, or there's some other options the commission can look at, including continuing with the temporary contract that is on the next agenda item. That, I will tell you, though, if we go with that procedure, none of that work will be reimbursable through FEMA. I covered a lot of things. I think that's about it. Any questions on that before we get to the next item?
Ken, thank you. As we go through this transition, it's nice to have a person with your attention to detail in a very vital area in regards to maintenance and engineering on the track, to have that in our corner. And I thank you for being there. And I look forward to riding the rail with you and learning more, because it's not, I've been on the track many times, but never really paid attention in the seat that I'm in now. I want to know more, and I look forward to working with you. But any questions from the board?
I do. One brief. Oh, you want to go, Jack?
Okay.
Oh. Ken, thank you for the update. Looking through the minutes from the previous meeting, I think you briefed a letter from July 16th where you summarized all the repairs, all the bids that had been done. Is there any way you could email me that just so I'm up to speed on, or if you have it, that would be even better. Thanks so much.
Yes, sir.
So Ken, tunnel number 2. So you got water coming into the tunnel from the top? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Obviously not at this point. Basically, the damage sustained by the flood was there was some relatively minor erosion beneath of the head walls on either end. And so the repair on that is going to be essentially to place grout to fill those cracks in.
Okay.
There's also some ditch work that needs to be done on either side of the tunnel. That's included in this, what is, I believe it's called NEVAC 02 -NV project as per FEMA. That's the approved project. Unfortunately, what they didn't approve was the testing and taking a look what's happening on the ceiling. They apparently didn't include that as an item. But
Are you talking the ceiling at the portals, or? Sorry. Are you talking about the ceiling at the portals, at each portal, or are we talking about in the middle of the tunnel itself?
it's principally, and I'm going to get you guys really confused here, it's on the railroad east end of the tunnel, which is the absolute west side of the tunnel. Pretty much probably the third of the uphill side of the tunnel, we saw there was water literally pouring out of that, through the cracks in the steel and along the sides. And the question is did we lose the integrity of that ceiling and the rock bolting and the grouting that had been done through that water infiltration? Not unusual for a tunnel to have water in it. But
Yeah, I would think.
Worried about that separation. The only way you get up there is with a hammer, and you got to just say
You've got fractured rock up there that can leak water forever.
It's it's typical Virginia Comstock rock.
Yeah.
Nothing solid about it. So we thought it would still be prudent to take a look. I think we're going to find out it's okay. If not, then we're going to have to look at trying to do something else, which would probably be involving doing some additional rock bolting. But I was joking with Gary Luce because during the rehabilitation of that, when we opened that tunnel, which was probably the one item that took more of my life away from me than anything else on that project, and also the most expensive thing on the entire railroad project. Every year we worked on that during the winter, and there's absolutely no place colder than the middle of tunnel number 2 in January, so to speak. So we don't know what damage. I suspect we're going to be fine.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public in regards to engineering report? With that, entertain a motion to accept the report from Mr. Dorr.
I'll make a motion to support Mr. Dorr's track maintenance report.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. With that, we'll move on to agenda item number 11. Possible action, track maintenance contract. Ken, this will be you again.
Thank you, Denny, and I led into this a little bit. With the deferral of the big maintenance project that we had bid, and because of the funding to take care of the $242,000 amount of work, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done up there. There's some critical situations that need to be addressed, hopefully before we get any additional storms. Again, we did some temporary cleaning of some of the ditches in January and February last year, and That was literally just trying to cut a little flow line. We have vertical sides on some of that debris, which will literally collapse again. The problem is that when we lose our drainage facilities, you start getting debris flow over the top of the track. Those can all be addressed on an emergency basis, but I sure hate to have them happening during Polar Express. One of the issues we did have, and Gabe and myself using Gabe's high rail vehicle. High rail is a truck that has guide wheels which are removable that drop down onto the track, so you can take your car, in this case truck, up and down the track as a highway/track vehicle. We did an inspection, I believe it was in June, with the Nevada State Public Utilities Commission rail safety supervisor, who's brand new, seems like a really good guy. And again, they're not out to kill anybody. They're here to help. And this individual was also, and his name escapes me at the Tim Blaylock, lives in Dayton, by the way. It was pretty apparent that we were in violation of the FRA requirement, track safety requirement, that we have to maintain our drainage facilities. And that's about as generic or specific as that requirement is. It says, railroad, you will maintain your drainage facilities. Does not tell you how or to what condition, but with the debris flow, we have lost a lot of our drainage facilities. Tim didn't write us up for that because of the fact that we knew we had this project coming up. Originally, the project we had anticipated bidding but didn't have the funding for. So what we're hoping to do is going ahead, what I put out here, I asked Gabe to get together and with Tom to utilize some of his equipment, which is key to doing some of this work, to put together a proposal. And there's no specific scope. It's a time and material because we don't know how long this material is going to take, what the weather conditions are going to be, when it's going to be done. But the guesstimate was, okay, I asked Gabe, said, if you worked up there for 3 weeks, ideally we might get 25%, maybe a little bit more of the work that was going to be included with the big project, but at least we can get some of the critical locations and the ones that if I was the FR inspector next time I'd write up. And to go ahead and proceed with some of that work. And again, the idea is that there's some equipment involved there. One of the key items is the high rail excavator. It's a excavator that has also got guide wheels, can run on-off track, that Tom purchased this last year. That would be one of the key items. We can't just toss the material in a lot of cases over the bank, because there's no room in a full cut. You need to unfortunately load that material into a car. Tom has spent quite a bit of time rehabilitating, and I think he calls it his antique side dump car, but it works. And that requires a locomotive to move the material up and down and take it from the ditch and take it to a location where it needs to be, where it can be deposited. So there's 3 basic pieces of equipment: is the excavator, the air dump car, and a locomotive to move that material, get it out of the cuts. Also included as far as a major piece of equipment with this is a ballast regulator, which is actually owned by Gabe Williman. And we wanted to bring that on, not just for this project. I've been trying to get that up here for about the last 4 years. And a ballast regulator is a small, well, not that small if it runs into you, but a tractor that's got a nice plow on the front, which you can either plow typically ballast in a V situation, or you can turn the plow sideways to plow ballast that you have deposited in your track one side or another. It's also got wings on the side to dress your shoulders. The thinking that on the shoulders in particular, we're going to disturb some of those when we do any of that ditch work with Tom's excavator. Also, we have in this contract is a guesstimate of 2 cars of ballast and what the cost we think that would take to purchase the ballast, get it loaded into Tom's car, and get it distributed to spot some of those locations. So that's what it amounts to. And again, it's a guesstimate of about 3 weeks worth of work. I think the original duration on the original contract, which also included some surface and lining, where they would be bringing in some track surfacing and lining equipment, which isn't included here. Between Tom and Gabe, they have some of that capability, but we don't visualize doing much of that production surface and lining. Bottom line is that this is a portion of the work. It's not going to get the whole thing done, 3 weeks worth of work, but we need some kind of a cost basis, because I wasn't comfortable just saying, just do it without having some kind of a, what's it going to cost us? And maybe instead of 10 days of excavator, we use 6 days, or we use 12, but at least we know what it's going to cost. The bottom line is, came out to an estimate of $48,000. And the thinking was that whatever that amount would be, it would be a time and materials not to exceed. And I'll have to go ahead and monitor some of this. And it could be a lesser amount. Something to also keep in consideration. I really think it's important to get this work done as early as possible to protect our facility. However, before I say however, if you look at all the work that NDOT's been doing along their roadways, cleaning their ditches, they've been doing that since the storm, and they're still doing it right now, as well as the county and the city. And they're anticipating, they're trying to say, well, if we have another storm next year, if we don't have our ditches in shape, we're shoot out of luck, so to speak. No reimbursement from FEMA if we go this way. That does not mean that we can't put another project out to bid, which has to be formally bid, generally speaking, if we have to be in conformance with their procurement regulations. The exception to that is if we're less than $100,000, we can get 3 proposals and still be in conformance with both NRS and FEMA procurement requirements. And if the project is less than $100,000, then we don't have to kick in prevailing wage, federal prevailing wage. So that might be an option for later. One of the things that we have to be careful of is the NRS requirement. You can't split up a project to keep it down below the prevailing wage number. But this is work that has nothing to do with, we're not bidding this. This is, let's do some work now, but we're still going to have some more work later on. And these guys may pull off a miracle, and they may get 75% of the work done that we need to get done. I don't know. But with the idea that this is a big chunk of change, and I talked to Denny a little bit, can we defer it till January? Yes, unless we have a storm. But one of the reasons that made the decision today to defer the $11,000 to $12,000 in costs for vegetation maintenance or vegetation abatement was to hopefully provide additional funding for this. Gabe is here in the audience, and he put the prices together, and as well as Tom also. So if there's any questions with him, then he'd be glad to try to babble as much as I can. So,
Questions from the board?
Yeah, I guess my question would be to Bob, is there a reserve fund for maintenance that we're sitting on that we can spend for these repairs?
Long story short, no. No.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of.
Well, Story County has some funds that are earmarked specifically, as I understand it, Hugh, for the train from their tax income. But they haven't yet released it.
No, my question was, do we have an account with a
Specifically
fund?
or budgeted?
And
No.
that we should have
Yeah, no.
for this kind of stuff?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Ken, knowing that safety is of the utmost concern and the integrity of the track, and knowing that we really haven't been able to go through an audit process on the financial side to know what we have, are there, in your opinion, are there items out of here that we can do maybe next month or the month after as it kind of work our way towards getting something done, preferably before the weather hits? I realize that could happen this weekend. We don't know. But anyway, just your take on that as we try and make a decision on the board, knowing that we probably don't have the funds right now to do this, but it gets one of those things we got to weigh, I guess, going forward.
I actually had a discussion with Gabe this afternoon, and with the idea, we're at the middle of October right now. In reality, if this were to be approved, it's going to take both Tom and Gabe probably a week or two to get their equipment mobilized. So the amount of billing you would see in October would probably be pretty minimal. So most of the billing would be coming in November and December for this work, I think. As far as picking and choosing, I mean, we haven't really identified which of the high items are going to be required, although I've seen enough of that locations up there that that's going to be pretty easy to do. Pretty much most of the worst-case scenario work is between Mount House and the top of American Platte and Gold Hill. There's a number of locations, and there's one spot down below Carson City that below Eastgate that needs to be has some attention, but that could easily be deferred till spring because we're not going to be running any trains down there again. Again, the Polar's got to run from Virginia City down to Carson City, so it's going to go over these challenging areas. As far as safety, I mean, the reason we inspect the track is to identify a problem that occurs, particularly a sudden problem, so that we can stop the train. And that's what Gabe does, why we still have to do inspections twice a week. Or in additional situations at additional frequency depending on if you have some storms and whatnot. Basically, you have to get out and inspect the track. So is there going to be a catastrophic safety issue? I don't think so. But we have to recognize that we may be out of service for a little bit. If we do have mud flows over the track, then, and if there's a ballast regulator handy, we can probably temporarily clean some of those things up. So do I think we're endangering the public by not doing this work? No, I don't, because we'll be watching very closely. However, we're letting our facility risking further damage and further costs if we don't proceed with some of this work. Again, why is NDOT cleaning their ditches right now?
Thank you, Ken. Any other comments from the board?
You know, going back to the stakeholders' SWOT analysis, it certainly was one of the top concerns that there was no dedicated funding source for the maintenance. Having already said that our intention is to, at the end of this agenda, to potentially have a special meeting and look at some of those committees, I would be more inclined, rather than deferring this to the beginning of next year, to start it into the process of a committee to look at how we plan, and plan very quickly for a maintenance agreement, in addition to the funding of that maintenance agreement. Possibly having this come back in a special meeting within a couple of weeks when we can get a committee together to work with you and Gabe. Identify, and the reason why I'm thinking that we need to come back quickly and have a committee, the funding. We need to identify revenue sources outside of the existing funding provided to make this happen, and I think that has to happen, and I think having a committee together, so I mean, that would certainly be a direction I would be looking at.
Just to clarify, there is a maintenance budget with the enterprise fund. Basically, that covers inspection and some light maintenance. And again, there's a copy of Gabe's contract, and I think that's what Bob budgets for the maintenance and inspection work. That's sort of pretty much regular maintenance. You know, you have switches to maintain and low spots and little odds and ends with track items that take care of. But there never has been an emergency fund set up to cover a big item like this one, or when, for example, when we had the settlement on the Overman embankment, that was a $200,000 repair, and that came out of the general fund. So things like that happen. It's just the way it is. All in all, the track's in pretty darn good shape. You know, we used, as I talked to Denny, we used some pretty good components. We used heavy steel, big tie plates, all new ties on the main line. Ballast section isn't the thickest in the world, but it doesn't need to be because we're not carrying a lot of tonnage. But what we didn't do is widen the embankments out to mainline or even modern branch line standards, which would accommodate a lot more of this drainage runoff, because we didn't want to basically ruin the atmosphere of a historic railroad, and also would have been very expensive. Original railroad embankment, I think, was telling, I'm going to stop talking. Original railroad embankment in 1869 was built with about a 12-foot dirt top. Well, the standard for that's about 24 at this point now. When we widened it, we widened that out to about 14 to 15 feet, however we could, which was a little tricky in some of the embankments, and then we placed the track on that so we could at least get some type of a ballast section. Again, I'm giving you too much detail at this point, so.
Any other board comment? Do we have a comment from the public on this agendized item?
Yes, some of that work needs to be done.
If you can come on up, Tom, that'd be great.
Tom Gray, B&T Railroad. Some of that work does need to be done before the weather hits. I think the emergency repairs that were done and the culverts have already filled back up, so And, we can make it happen somehow, but it needs to happen.
So question, Tom, if we can convene a special committee as early as next week and come back as quickly as we can agendize approval of finding a revenue source for some of these items that have to be done before the storm hit us, 2 weeks out, is that okay?
Oh, you bet.
Okay.
I'd recommend that you have the meeting actually on the track on a section cart and just get a great tour of everything and an understanding of it, perspective.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, I would concur with that. Okay, so any other public comment? Not hearing that, do we entertain a motion to potentially continue this to next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to make a motion to table item 11, with the intent to potentially come back within a week with the posting requirements to form a committee that will address maintenance and ongoing funding of maintenance and identifying a revenue source to move forward. Then again, posting with the posting requirements to come back with the approval of that revenue so we can move forward with, if not all, portions of this proposed contract.
I'll second that motion. I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion moved.
Denny, before we go on, Gabe, how many folks will your high roller hold?
I'll hold 5.
So anytime we want to take a trip down that, we'll give Gabe a little notice and we can all cram in that thing and he's seen the track, so we can have him meet us at the end.
Yep, I'd like that.
I definitely know that there'll be four here that have not had the opportunity. So
I could also take a couple of people at a time. You guys just want to go to see it beforehand or after, that's fine.
Great, thank you. Okay, let's move on to agenda item number 12 for possible action. Attorney's report. Mr. Rowe.
Thanks, Denny. If you guys decide to take that tour, remember we got to notice it and make sure that there's no action taken and you don't discuss anything while you're doing that outside of a public forum so that people can have an opportunity to respond. In terms of the last agenda item, I thought I'd mention to you that perhaps informally, on December 29th, 2015, Dwight signed a proposal extending the track maintenance agreement with Gabe through 2018. But that's, as Ken noted, for certain discrete activities that are identified in the schedule, and I think he passed that out to you as part of his handout. So while there is that in force, it doesn't address the problems that Ken has mentioned. Be real brief. I know Ken says that, but can't do it, but I can. It's been pretty light. Review minutes, agendas, and so forth. Keep an eye on the FEMA stuff. There was a little bit of work on that FEMA this week. We got contacted about one of the second flood event where we didn't file anything. Somebody had to sign off saying we weren't going to be applying for any relief under that. And just review and respond to email from Candy and Bob and anybody that writes it, Denny, for example. One thing about your funding sources, and I know you weren't approving these because you weren't a participant, save Jack, but we have for a while been looking at the asset known as Draco Way. And if you look at item 16 from the last set of minutes, you can see the latest that was discussed on that. And I think you might want to put that specific discussion on your agenda so you can discuss that Draco note and what may or may not be the board's desire with that. While Dwight was chairman, he had wanted to investigate the possibility of selling the note, and then it was possibly going to be pledged to Story County for funds coming towards the commission. But I think that's a source of revenue that you can possibly investigate, maybe as a bridge until you get everything squared away with the new commission and your new funding sources. So I would put a discussion of the Draco Way note and the status of it as of the forgotten the date of the last meeting, August 17th, Bob reported that the value of it was $469,881. But that's over time. So I think that would help you at least understand where possible funding sources may be. But that's all I have, thanks, unless you have questions.
What was that number again?
469,881 was as of the August 17th meeting. I'd imagine that's gone down a little bit because there would have been September and October payments on the note, which part of which would be principal and part of which would be interest. So the value of it probably declined a little bit by principal payments.
Yes, that is correct, yes.
I did bring that up with Pat Whitten, County Manager, Story County Manager. It raised his eyebrows. There was the other item we discussed was there's a plot of land there by the Gold Hill Depot there that could be negotiated in the works too. So I guess we need to bring him to the table, see what's possible. I'll have a discussion with him, and hopefully he'll come to the next meeting and we can discuss it openly.
That is true, Jack. And we don't talk much about that Gold Hill lot, but that was donated to the commission. I have no idea what the value of it is, but
I believe that the intent, the intent of its usage would be to kind of open up the parking lot area there.
that's been discussed off and on over the years.
Yeah, they want to try to do some events there and have ample parking.
Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public in regards to this agenda item?
I'm going to add one more thing to that. Another reason that Story County would like to acquire that too is because people that live across the street have been abandoning their cars in that area.
Good call. Yeah, they have been.
And they've been a nuisance. So that's another key thing.
So another comment, I'll take a motion to approve Mr. Rowe's report.
Make a motion to approve Attorney's Report, Michael Smiley Rowe.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. With that, we'll move to agenda item number 13 for possible action to set next meeting dates. And before we get started here, I want to apologize to the public and to those vendors that we have worked with or that have been attending meetings. Obviously, there wasn't a transition plan here that was hard in place. So when we jumped in here October 1st, there's some things that needed to be done, and we need to do it quick. So there was things that have been done in the past in regards to agendas, and I think our goal as a board is to be completely transparent and to have that information out in a timely fashion so that everybody can be prepared to submit their reports, have one link, one common thread where they can find a good source of information so everybody knows. So that's the goal, I believe, in the will of the board. But with that, we need to talk about probably some next meeting dates.
Well, before we get into talking about our annual dates or consistent, I'd like to once again address the need to have a meeting. If we are able to post by next Monday, 9 a.m., I think that'll meet the requirements to have a special meeting Thursday. Is the board available Thursday afternoon? I know it's Board of Supervisors. I don't know what your agenda looks like next week.
Yeah, I don't think hang on. Give me one.
And this would be just to form some subcommittees?
Yeah, correct. So identified through the meeting today, there's an immediate need to have a subcommittee for Polar Express, finance, marketing, and maintenance. Not limited to that, but those would certainly be agendized for forming a committee that would include no more than 2 members of the commission and members of the public.
And that could actually be a telephone or a conference call, if you will, that's open to the public.
That's right. That is correct, Denny. There has to be a location for the public to attend where there's a speakerphone component that will allow the public to hear and speak to the matters that are being discussed telephonically, but the OML allows participation by the board members telephonically as long as those requirements are met.
Thursday's kind of tough for me.
Yeah, Thursday for me would be very difficult, Joel.
Wednesday or Friday I can do.
Friday would be much better.
Okay.
Wednesday, well, we could do it Wednesday afternoon if you can all do it at about 3.
You
Yeah.
can't meet the noticing requirements.
Yeah, so just make it Friday then.
It has to be 3 full working days before the meeting.
Roger that.
So, I think with that, Friday looks like it should work with the opportunity to have members that need to phone in. I'll work with Nick Morano and identify the location. If it's not this room, we'll get the meeting agendized and posted to meet the requirements by 9 a.m. on Tuesday morning, making sure that everyone that is currently on the list received that. It'll meet all of the posting locations, both in Carson City and Story County. There's, at least 2 or 3 locations that we can meet that will meet those requirements. If not this room, we've got the conference room at the Brick, which is located on Proctor next to City Hall, and also Nick's conference room in the City Hall. So we can certainly meet the requirements of the telephone. I more than likely will have to phone in on Friday. Okay. So then setting the next meeting date, at least for that, for the formation of subcommittees, would be next Friday, and that is the 20th.
A little earlier, you guys, 1 o'clock?
1 o'clock?
Okay.
Want to do like 1?
1 o'clock, and the location will be identified and sent out to everybody, hopefully before Tuesday morning at 9, but definitely before Tuesday at 9 to meet the posting requirements.
And is it okay if I come to your Friday meeting via phone, because I won't be in town? So
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that
no
will
problem,
work.
Candy. Yeah, I think there'll be several of us that'll probably call in, and
Okay.
we could even look at an area in Virginia City too. We could, where people could come to the visitor center or wherever, or a conference center. We have a conference center there that we could call in together, so we could hear them. People wouldn't have to travel.
On that, we obviously, once again, for mirroring what Danny had said, with lack of a transition plan, I think it's imperative. You're going to see quite a few special meetings that we're going to be agendizing to move forward with business as usual and fixing what we need to, especially to get through the Polar Express. Candy, you did a great job on identifying some of the concerns, immediate concerns with Polar Express. I've had an opportunity also to sit down with Bob Robinson and talk about some of those concerns. And having the committee formed next week for the Polar Express, we'll be able to identify those. Today we've addressed the ability to sign checks. So we'll move forward pretty quickly with that. But I would make a recommendation that we look at meeting monthly outside of those special meetings. And looking at this room, I think it's important that we move forward and at every opportunity be in this room, making sure every meeting we have is televised. We'll have the recording that we require. With that, the availability in this room is a little short, but the last Thursday of every month once again, staying consistent, 2 to 4 or 2 to 5, it is available if the other commission members would entertain the idea of doing it monthly, last Thursday of the month.
Yeah, that'd be okay with me.
Me too.
Yeah, I think that would work for me on my calendar. I think that makes it very consistent for the public too, and they can be more transparent.
Okay.
So with that, Joel, would be looking at our next formal meeting on the 26th of this month?
Yeah, I think that would get us in time for the posting requirements. Once we do the subcommittees, I think we'll very quickly put the subcommittee together to address the maintenance and the proposed contract that was in front of us today, so that we can come back and look at revenue and hopefully an approval of portions of that contract, if not all of it. We'll also be able to get together Polar Express. I think we'll have to work with Michael on identifying the process and the time frame with NRS so that we can go out and do an RFP for the maintenance and the setup and everything associated with the Polar Express. And that's going to have to happen as quickly as we possibly can per NRS.
This is we're still having the 20th, the meeting on the 20th.
Correct.
And then we'll
For
have
the
one on
formation of the
26th.
subcommittees,
City
yeah.
call in, yeah. for
Oh, okay.
subcommittees. Subcommittees only. That'll be just a
Right.
quick meeting, and then have a regular scheduled meeting on the,
Oh, 26th,
regular scheduled meeting on the 26th.
okay. At what time?
There's a 1 o'clock
1
work?
o'clock? Yeah, that's fine with me.
1 o'clock?
Yeah, 1 o'clock would be great.
I was just wondering, Joel, for you said go out to RFP. Do you have to do that? Isn't there a certain amount of money that it has to be before you are required to get a bid, or I'm not clear?
No, I did, if,
Up to 50,000, you can just get it done.
Yeah.
Between 50 and 100, you get 3 qualified contractors to give you estimates, and over 100, you do the whole Mary Ann with the advertising.
so, and not speaking for certainly the committee that will come together, but if and when there's an opportunity, even though it's not required for a contract up to 50,000, when we're spending near that amount, and I think looking at some of the invoices, I think just the setup and tear down of the Express was probably getting us close to 30,000, if not a little more. I think that if we have an opportunity to meet those requirements, to put out a proposal to make sure that it's as transparent as possible, I would recommend that we look at that, but it certainly isn't a requirement.
Okay, with that, any other comments from the board? Any comments from the public on this agendized item? So with that, I would entertain a motion to have our next meeting possibly via telephone on Friday the 20th at 1 p.m., and then our next regular scheduled meeting on Thursday the 26th, again at 1 p.m.
Yeah, and then, I just want to make sure I'm following, and then every final Thursday of the month thereafter, 1 p.m.?
That works.
Something
Yeah, I
like
think
that,
that
right?
works.
Do we all agree with that?
I do. I think that's important.
Okay, so let me try a motion. I move to set the next meeting, which will be a special meeting, to cover specific assignments to committees on October 20th at 1 p.m. The next regular meeting of the commission would be on October 26th, also at 1 p.m. And then every final Thursday of the month, and we're going to have some that have 5 weeks in a month. So, but it'll be the final Thursday of every month thereafter for the regular meeting of the commission at 1 p.m. And ideally, we'll do them all right in here. And I'll confirm the location or the availability of the room for the 20th.
We have a motion?
I'll second it.
We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, with that, we'll move on to agenda item number 14. Commissioner comments. Commissioners, anything you want to address?
Well, I certainly want to thank everyone who was on the board prior to October 1st. And I'm glad to see that we have Candy and Bob and Ken here and Mike. And hopefully, we're going to refocus. We've got a lot of new energy on the board to take us down that path. And we've already seen the fruits of them being here already before they were even board members. You see the ridership's already up a little bit with what little effort we've kind of done. I mean, there's been some effort. I'm not saying there wasn't enough effort, but they haven't been totally focused on it because they're doing their own thing. But looking at the reports that Bob sent, the ridership's up from last couple of years, easy. That's pretty obvious. So, and I want to welcome my new comrades here, and I think we're going to do well. So, I'm excited to see it move forward. And we're gonna be stumbling along and tripping over our own feet, but we'll get there. Thank you.
Once again, I want to thank everyone that is here today and also those that attended the SWOT analysis. I'll bring back all of the meeting notes from that day so that we as a group and the subcommittees can talk about all of the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that were identified that will certainly be needed to address in those subcommittees. With that, knowing that we'll have a subcommittee for finance, at opening remarks, Bruce, you had talked about the, sizable investment that these communities have made in this effort, and that's one of the reasons why we're all sitting up here today, to make sure that we create the most sustainable train that we possibly can and stay true to the intent that everyone's put a lot of work into. With that certainly all your concerns will certainly be addressed and come back to this commission as part of a report from that finance committee. So I thank you for that. But no, I'm excited. In having been now with the Tourism Authority going on 5 years, and also been a member of this community my entire life, the time and effort that we're all spending on this is certainly due to our community. So I want to thank everybody for their participation also.
Anybody else?
So I would just like to thank everyone who's been involved. I got to know Ken, Bob, Candy. Thank you for the effort that you've put in to not only getting the commission and the train and the railroad where it is today, but also for your efforts into the future. There's a lot I need to learn about, not only the details of the operation, also the budgeting process. I look forward to that. And I look forward to being a good part of the team here. Thank you.
And then finally, I'll echo my board members' here comments and say again, thank you for jumping in here and being the next generation here with the V&T. And with that, the folks that are now looking at us here, I hope you're on that call next Friday. I hope you get in and volunteer, because it takes a village. This is a regional product, and we all need to jump in and help out where we can. There's a lot of good things that we can do if we come together. There's no more zip code, no more county lines. This is one product that we're going to see succeed. So with that, thank you. So we'll move on to agenda item number 15, our second public comment. Do we have any public comment from items that we didn't discuss today?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Hugh Gallagher. I was just wondering if there is a certified audit and process for the year ended 2017.
Yes, there is. It's in process currently.
That's Steele and Associates?
Yes, Steele and Associates, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other public comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item number 16. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. I need a bigger button.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we're adjourned.
I need to meet with all the signers. I need, if you...